Hello everybody, here we are. It's Think Differently Thursday. It's Thursday again, and I'm Helen, and I'm really pleased to have Alice with me, Alice Peterson. Hi Alice.
Hello.
Are you okay?
I'm all good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I've kind of slightly changed where I am today. I've got my giraffes behind me. You've got fairy lights.
They're all over the house. I love them.
Looks mystical and beautiful. Looks lovely. Alice, just give us a little brief introduction to who you are.
Yeah, so I'm Alice Peterson. I'm married to Sam. I'm the youth and young adult worker at West Road Church in Bury St Edmunds, and live in Bury and love it. Like, Bury's just such a lovely town. But I am daughter of Steve and Sarah Fenning as well. So yeah, that's a little bit of intro about me.
Fantastic. And how are you coping with lockdown? Because here we are in lockdown again. How's that working out for you? What are your kind of strategies for surviving lockdown?
Yeah, so for me, it works pretty busy, lots of time on Zoom, as you'd expect. We've got Zoom, youth Zoom tonight, which is great. I'm really excited about it. But for me, strategies for like getting through and coping would be exercise, like definitely going outside, doing a workout, going for a run, those sorts of things, spending time with Sam, and probably reading a good book as well. I'd say those would be my three things. And prayer, like bring God into it, like he helps.
Great.
Those would be some of my strategies. Yeah.
And what's the exercise you do? When you say exercise, what is it you do?
So I run and I do like boot camp style workouts outside in our car park. I'm sure my neighbours think that. We live in a flat, so we've got like funky neighbours that if they opened their windows and had a look, they'd probably see me doing weird exercises. But no, it's good. I love it.
That's very inspirational, and I think I'm sitting around eating too much food while you're doing exercise. That's brilliant. And so you've kind of brought a bit of context to who you are, in that you are daughter of Steve and Sarah from the Forge. Steve is our senior leader there, and I've known you since you were born, right from the beginning. And so obviously that means that you have grown up in and around this big church family with your dad in church leadership. And I know at times people would say that it's a difficult experience for vicars' kids. Well, we don't have a vicar, we have a senior leader, but what was the experience for you? Was it easy? Was it hard? What was growing up in that kind of context like?
For me, I wouldn't say it was like crazy difficult. There would be like a few awkward moments where like weird people come over for dinner and evening meals and things. But like, or there was one time when I was like a teenager, probably like late teens, so like 17, 18, and I came downstairs in my pajamas, all the staff and elders or whoever was there, and I was like, oh my goodness me, well, what is going on? And so just ran back up the stairs after they'd all seen me come downstairs with bed hair. But generally, no, like if anything, it means I've really felt as a family, we've been really supported by the church. And so I feel like I've got like a real wide, like just such amazing support growing up from, the church leaders and things like that. So actually it was a really good thing for me, for sure.
That's great. And I know that you have chosen to adopt faith yourself, and that it's not enough in a sense just to have been in that environment, but it's a choice that you've made yourself to be a Christian. How and when did that happen for you?
Yeah, so actually, when I became a Christian really young, I was 4 years old. I don't know if I remember it or if it's like a picture that someone else has put in my head because of the way it happened. But in my birth mum's Bible, she's got the date that me and my brother became a Christian. And so my birth mum passed away when I was 4. So it was just before she passed away, I gave my life to Jesus. And people ask how much can a 4-year-old know, but I think as much as a 4-year-old can know, they can understand who God is and inviting him into our lives. So it was then, but then growing up, I've kind of always had that faith. I would say there hasn't really been a moment where I really doubted who God was. There's probably moments where I was like angry at God, but I think actually having that faith is a real gift from God for me, in that I've kind of always believed. I kind of always do.
Have you had anyone ever challenge you on it and say that either that's too young to make a decision, or that it means that you haven't known what it is not to have God in your life? Because I guess that means you actually don't remember a time where God wasn't part of your life. Has that ever been something that people have challenged you on?
I guess so, but I don't think it's a problem.
Okay.
I don't.
Yeah.
In that, actually, I've not lived a life where I feel like I haven't. Like I've done lots of things where I've messed up and I've, gone against what I know God wants for me. But to not have a time in my life that I can think of where I haven't known God's there, I think that's quite good. Like I've
Yeah.
always experienced Him in my life.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's necessarily a problem.
No.
Where
Yeah.
that
And
makes
so
sense.
you talked about the experience of growing up in this Christian family, and actually sort of a bigger, wider family with the church family as well. But you just mentioned there Sarah, your birth mum, and that she passed away when you were 4, did you say? So that experience must have shaped your growing up and childhood to an extent. I mean, what is your memory of that time, or how has that impacted you in growing up?
Yeah, I think in lots of different ways. I think partly, I mean, I don't really remember because I was so young.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
part of that is that's really sad. I don't have that many memories. I have a few memories of mum, but like there's probably 3 or 4 total. Where like my stepmom, who came in and married my dad 2 years later, she's been a huge influence on my life, and just I am who I am because of her today. I have so much to thank her for who I am, because she recognised that we would get upset about really little things, but it would be like the biggest issue in the world. And so it was helping us to work through that and recognise grief and move on as well, because it had been a few years by that point. So I know that was something that we experienced. But I think for me today, being able to look back and see how God has used that experience for me to then help others, or even just to be able to understand what others are going through maybe a little bit, has been really powerful. So I think recognizing that God can use any situation for his good.
And that's an amazing thing to talk about, isn't it? Because I guess at the time, for those of us that knew Sarah, it was a confusing time, because it didn't seem to make any sense. So to say that now there's experience of being able to share with other people and identify with them and empathize with them, that's amazing. So you talked about growing up and your dad married Sarah. And so as you look back on childhood, what would you say were like key things for you? Maybe happy moments, or things that you kind of look back on fondly now. Are there things that really kind of stand out from growing up?
Yeah, so there'd be lots. I loved, so this isn't necessarily like family related, but I used to love going on Christian camps at Sizewell. They were like the highlight of my year from the age of 11 to about 19, and still now really. I go as a leader now and I still love it. So the Sizewell camps would be like a huge memory growing up that I would hold on to. I think going on holiday with my family when I was quite young, we went to Australia and New Zealand, and that was like amazing. And looking back on that, that's just, that was so much fun. I think actually as well I went to Croatia with my dad when I was, I think I would have been 14, 15. And I loved that because we were doing, I think Croatia is one of the mission partners of the Forge. So we went out there and did that together, and I loved it. It was so much fun to be able to do that with him. So those would be a few fun memories that I have from growing up.
Yeah, it sounds like you've done loads of amazing things that have kind of fed into your life and shaped you. It's brilliant. And so growing up and then finished school. And so what came next for you after school?
Yeah, I went and lived in Africa for a year after that. So I lived in South Africa for about like 2-3 months, then Malawi for a month, South Africa for about 6 months, and then a few other countries like a couple of weeks in between and things like that. So
And this was all with Hands, was it?
yeah,
Yeah,
so
so Hands being one of our global partnerships at the Forge. So yeah, so you stayed in the countries that they work in. Was that how that worked?
yeah, it was. Yeah, and
And so
I
what was,
absolutely loved it.
did you, what was your kind of role, or was it varied while you were out there?
Oh, it varied so much, but I guess predominantly looking back, it was doing things like writing stories to send back to churches. So
Okay.
I'd go into the community, I'd stay with a family, I would write down their story, kind of type it all up when I got back, and then we'd send it back to the church partners in the UK, in the US, in Canada, in all the different countries where Hands is being supported. So I did that for quite a long time, and I supported some of the people kind of hands-on as well in Zambia, who were on the ground, looking out for the care workers, the people who would spend their time living in community, supporting the vulnerable and orphan children.
Fantastic. And so looking back on that year, even straight after, but maybe now a few years on, what impact would you say that year had on you, or how did that shape you to who you are now?
Oh, massively. I think it really changed my perspective of the world. Like, as an 18-year-old who lived in Suffolk my whole life, to go and live like hundreds and thousands of miles away from my family, and I didn't see any of them for a year, but to then also see the poverty and that I saw just completely changed my perspective. And I think seeing people serve, giving everything they have to others, and sometimes to me, people would give like the last, like, I don't know, some of their last like bits of food to me if I was staying with them. And it was generosity and servant heartedness beyond anything that I could ever imagine. I actually I got a tattoo while I was out there, much to my mother's disapproval.
Does she know? She knows, does she?
But it says Yasuma, and it means beautiful in Bemba, which is one of the languages spoken in Zambia. And it's for the verse in Isaiah that says, how beautiful are the feet of those who climb the mountain to spread the good news. And that's what they say about their care workers. It's they've got beautiful feet because they walk for miles and miles and miles to spread the good news, to spread the news of Jesus, and to show the love that Jesus would have shown them. So I think for me, even like when I wake up and I see my little tattoo, it's like reminding me, okay, we've got to serve today, and how am I going to do that? What does my mountain look like today? So I can't say that I think about it every single day, but I would say that every time I talk about it, it's a huge reminder to me.
Fantastic. Sounds like a great thing to have done at that stage of life as well. Brilliant. So that was kind of a year, you must have then been like 18, 19. And then what came next for you after that?
I went and so when I came back, I knew I wanted to have a year kind of living at home, partly because Sam and I, who I'm married to now, we'd started chatting when I was away, and I really fancied him, so I wanted to live in the same place as him. So I knew I wanted to live in kind of Suffolk for a while, but actually when I moved back, I still wanted to work with vulnerable people. I knew it wasn't going to be in my career, but I wanted to do something for a year, and so I worked in a nursing home for a year. And I was she found out that I was a bit of a tough cookie because I'd lived in Africa for a year and worked with some some really tricky places, and they put me in kind of the toughest dementia ward that they had, which was really hard, kind of 12-hour shifts of I mean, my role, like it wasn't the nicest role. It was like I wiped bums constantly. But that's the job. It's looking after the vulnerable people in these nursing homes, and I learned so much in doing that role too, just because it was a very different kind of vulnerable. And I came back from Africa, where water was like, it was so important, you didn't waste it, where coming into the nursing home, you turn the taps on, you wait 10 minutes for it to warm up, to make sure that it's warm enough for the people that you're like bathing. And so for me, that first day, I was like, oh my goodness, this isn't what I'm used to, and things. But that's okay. I learned a lot in that time as well. I think everyone should have a go at doing a job like that, because it is so humbling. Like, especially because some of the people that I was helping to look after, they'd been in the war, and they had these amazing stories of things that they were doing, and now they're in a very different place. So
you sound like you're someone that like really likes to challenge yourself and put yourself out of your comfort zone in order to kind of grow and kind of learn more as well. It's really good. Very inspiring. Okay, so you did a year in a care home, and then what came next for you?
Then I went and studied at Moorlands Bible College for 3 years. So I spent 2 years on campus, and then 1 year back in Suffolk because I wanted to get married. And I worked for the Forge on placement there as well. So I was at Bible College for 3 years.
Wow. And so Bible College, I think, I don't know if it does so much now, but I think there used to be a time where there was almost this like misconception that Bible College was full of middle-aged men in corduroy, and it was kind of very serious and maybe dull. But the more I hear about Bible College and the more I know people that go, that's not the experience at all, is it?
No, not at all. I mean, Johnny went to Moorlands, and I don't know how many stories you've heard from his experience at Moorlands, but they are not, I wouldn't call them boring. So no, I didn't find it boring at all. I loved it. It was a lot of fun. Not that we like where we'd put music. I just put Taylor Swift on, to be honest. But I put Taylor Swift on the speakers. We'd dance around for a bit after dinner. Like, I loved it. It was great. Living in community is a lot of fun.
And so did you go to Moorlands because you had this kind of idea and hope to work with a church, or was that always the kind of trajectory of your life? Was that decision made while you were there, or what was the kind of planning going to Moorlands? What was the intention with that?
I've always loved youth work. That's been a huge passion of mine. I mean, even growing up, I used to love it, like getting alongside Matt Levitt and doing stuff with him. I used to really enjoy it. And I didn't know what was next after Moorlands, but I knew I wanted to learn more about God, and I knew I wanted to be able to provide the support that I guess Matt Levitt, Emily Hannah, Becky Warnock all gave me when I was growing up. And so for me, I was like, right, I want to go to Bible College to learn more so I can help others to know who God is. So that was the biggest motivation.
So when you did the placement year with the Forge, how was that? Because that must have felt, in a sense, really natural that you were just back in that environment that you were so familiar with. But sort of from another angle, was that an easy thing to do? Was that a tricky thing? What was that like?
Oh, I loved it. I was part of my role was to look after. I had just started, and so I picked up, like Matt started it off because I was still at uni, and then as soon as I came back, I picked up and kind of led the team in that. And I loved it. It was so much fun getting alongside the young people there. We had a really great team. Like, I really enjoyed it. I really, really loved it. There's always challenges with every job, but yeah, it was such a great year. I loved it. We had a lot of fun.
Know they hugely valued you as well. And so then you needed to get a job, presumably, and so that's how you come to be at West Road in Bury now. You applied for something and got that. So tell us a bit about what it is that you're doing there.
Yes, I'm the youth and young adult worker at West Road Church. Mostly, really, I'm doing the youth work, if I'm honest. But my role is to get alongside the young people. It's to disciple them. It's to try and branch out and get other people to come into church as well. So we do different youth groups that we try and engage with the community with more, and things like that. So I get that's my big role. It's being part of the team that does that.
Sounds pretty varied.
It is very varied, especially in lockdown, because so much of it on Zoom. I've got to go and drop off we're doing a Zoom tonight, and so I need to drop off some packages which got some like snacks and games and things in that they'll nice. So lots of driving and knocking on doors and things, but I really enjoy it. So
right. So I guess from beginning that role and looking at that role now, like us at the Forge, and like so, like lots of organizations and businesses, you've had to really change what you're doing? Is it been a challenge, or do you kind of feel like you've slipped into this new normal now? How has that kind of transition been?
And it was hard at the beginning because it felt like it was like thrown at us, and we were like, oh no, what do we do? So it was hard, and then we moved into like doing video editing and stuff, and so I've learned a whole new skill, which is great. I can't say it's been easy, but I've enjoyed it. And then so I think definitely hard at the beginning. Feel more like I'm in the flow of it now. So
I think that's been true for so many of us as well, just like thrown into something where just needing to adapt and kind of just develop new skills as well. Sounds like you're doing amazingly. And of course you're being very, very modest, because I did watch your service on Sunday, because you spoke this last week, didn't you?
Yeah, it was my first time speaking in the adult congregation, so it was a bit nerve-wracking, but I really enjoyed it. And you can go back and watch it on YouTube if you want to.
It was really great. I would recommend you all go and watch it. Really, really good. And so youth work is your biggest thing, your main priority. How do you think this time is for young people? Not even necessarily just like within the church, but what do you think are the challenges for young people now with COVID? Just so much has changed for everybody. Are young people struggling more than others?
I think it's a real mixture. I think, yes, definitely. Some young people are struggling a lot more than others. I've had phone calls with parents or with young people who you wouldn't expect to struggle. Like, I've never seen them really struggle properly like that much before, but because of everything that's going on, when they went back to school, suddenly they've not been in these big groups before, not for 6 months. So when they then went back into school, it was just this anxiety around big groups of people. And so I've seen that with so many young people at the moment, where just suddenly like big groups are really scary in a way that they weren't before. It's like, I think we've seen on the news, mental health is affecting young people more and more than ever. And it's that whole thing of, we've got the opportunity to connect in so many different ways on our phones, through FaceTime, through WhatsApp, through Zoom, through all the different platforms that we use, and yet we're more disconnected than ever. And I think that's so true of our young people. They're not learning really how to do the big group situation in the same way anymore, because they're only having to do it in schools. And I definitely think it's affecting young people in these huge ways. And so for me, it's navigating, right, how do we help young people to connect in a time when we're not allowed to connect, or in the way that we need to, for sure.
I think that's a challenge, and I think probably it goes wider than young people as well, doesn't it? I think a lot of adults will be struggling in the same way.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so lovely to talk to you, and I know we at the Forge hold you very dear and love you very much, and I know people will be really interested in what you're doing and really supportive of what you're doing at West Road now. If there's anything that the guys at the Forge could be praying specifically for you, what would you ask people to pray?
I think, as always in church work, it's getting a good balance between, with any work really, but between work and friends and family, and like my relationship with Sam, my marriage, and making sure we've got the right balance of time, and knowing that work's really, really important, but like my relationship with my husband is more important, my relationship with God is more important, and all of those things. So I think it's getting a good rhythm of life at the moment. And I think with lockdown, it all gets a bit thrown up in the air and all your rhythms go out of place. So I think prayer for that and getting that right would be great. Well,
I'm sure people will be really, really keen to pray for you. It's been lovely chatting to you, and I'm hugely appreciative. I know you're really busy. I'm really, really thankful that you've made some time to chat to me. It is always lovely to chat to you. You are inspirational. I love all the stuff that you've fitted into your life already. I like to finish, Alice, with an and finally question. Sometimes it's deep and sometimes it's not. So my and finally question for you is, who's your money on to win celebrity?
I don't watch it. I don't know. I don't even know who's on it. I'm sorry. A rubbish answer.
You're not watching I'm a Celebrity?
No, I've never watched it. I just don't find it that interesting. I say that they annoy me. So
okay, there you go then. There you go. Nothing more to say to that, except to say thank you. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for chatting. Thanks for sharing your life. Really, really good to speak to you. See you, Alice. Bye.